So the apocalypse has to happen in like North Georgia. Is that what's going on? Like, is that what's going down?
Definitely.
There's no zombies.
No. Well,
We don't know that. We don't really see much out of these two small groups.
yeah.
Tell me what about this being a Georgian project. There seems to be so much. The cast all from like Atlanta connections. This really seems kind of perfect for a showcase of y'all's state. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're all living in Georgia at the time. I recently moved to Nashville just to torture myself, I guess. Yeah, we wanted to, I mean, part out of necessity because, small budget indie film, you use what you have access to. But we also just wanted to highlight, the people that we know, that we love, that are super talented, and that, people have given us opportunities, and we want to give as much to our community as we can. So we wanted to showcase as much of that. And
yeah. I'll speak to that.
Yeah.
We shot in North Georgia knowing that it was close by, and it had these kinds of, basically in Hiawassee, Georgia, everywhere we went, there would be an abandoned car that's all rusted over, or a house that's grown over in kudzu or whatever. So everywhere we went looked like a movie set. So our production budget was zero, but it went way up just because everywhere we went was this gorgeous, perfect location that looked post-apocalyptic.
As far as story-wise, where did you come up with kind of the idea? Did it always center around the women first? I love that we don't know if it's just going to be these three ladies the whole time.
Yeah.
I love that element.
Yeah. No, it came out of a couple things. One is just budget limitations. We knew we wanted to shoot something small with a small cast, and Jordan and I had a lot of conversations about parenting. We're both parents. He of two girls and me of a teenage son. And so a lot of conversations about how do you prepare a child for real life? And do you protect them, or do you let them go and let them fail and have some difficult learning experiences? And that's kind of really what the movie's about. Sam, the main character, is a teenage girl, and she's torn between these two parenting styles. Her mom is raising her to be tough as nails, and it's a dog-eat-dog world, and her kind of best friend / sister mom that ended up with them in this world, she's raising her to be to kind of embrace grace and see the world as something beautiful. And so she heads out into the world to put those two ideas to the test, and that's really what the movie's about.
I love that you guys open the film with photos, and that whole way you kind of enter us into your world. Where did that idea come from? And as far as shooting all that stuff, was that its own little mini world in itself? Because it's like the first 5 minutes of the movie we get kind of connected through just those little intimate shots.
Yeah. Well, Hudson and I both have backgrounds in graphic design and visual arts, so I think we both sort of approach filmmaking with that, not intentionally in mind, but it's there. Hudson had written in sort of these things where, without access to the internet or the world, she learns everything through these books and scraps of things. So it's her sort of piecing together the world just from books and photos and whatever she can find. I always imagined that she would go around to any other houses that were, within range of safety, and ransack their photo albums and their books, so just so she could consume as much information as possible. As far as creating those, my scanner got a really good workout. Most of those photos and things are people that we know, or they're a lot of Hudson's old family photos or mine, things that seem to, sort of deepen and tell a possible story or background, or,
Crowdfunding supporters.
Yes, some crowdfunding supporters ended up in there. A lot of old books that we ripped out, and my visual art, like a lot of what I've done design-wise, is that sort of collage, like old picture thing, and so I was just sort of exploiting my own artistic past.
And a lot of it was budgetary as well. Like, how do we set up this world and build this world without being able to show exactly what happened? So we do it by her talking about the present as if it's the past, and that's really what those voiceovers do.
As far as you have the wonderful literary references. I love the Three Musketeers, Alexander Dumbass, but the religious element in going with that specific way of reading and interpretation of an eye for an eye. Where did that come from? I was kind of blown away by when we get to that sequence in the cabin. It went a whole different way, obviously. But where did that come from? That was fascinating.
Where did that come from?
A lot of it is just a lot of what I write and a lot of what the conversations that all three of us have is really reflecting real emotions and real questions on the screen. And so my favorite is we did a screening recently, and this guy came up to me and he said, I've never seen my faith represented on film as clearly as this movie, which really touched me because I think we are all filled with questions and we all challenge those ideas, and we are torn between those worlds. And the eye for an eye thing became, it's very clear one side of the kind of mom side in this, and the other side being the gray side. And I think that's something we're all torn with growing up, and especially being a parent. Do you raise your kid to be tough? Do you raise your kid to be gentle? If you raise them to be gentle, are they going to be taken advantage of? And so those were just some of the ideas that we're exploring. And religion is kind of an easy place to do that because it's seemingly so black and white, and so we wanted to push both sides into the gray to have that conversation around it.
Definitely.
Can I answer that? One of the things I related to the script and the whole discussion is the idea of like, what is life worth living for, and what's the purpose and what's the higher meaning. And when she's in the church having her prayer, I think it says a lot about that. It's like, the questions that people ask, and she can do it openly because she's alone and literally doesn't really have to worry about anyone ever walking in on her until they do. but yeah, it broaches a lot of the questions I think that people ask and sometimes are afraid to ask. But she's young and doesn't know any better. And Hudson's always really good at uncovering those moments. I talk about both of these guys really just wear their heart and emotions on their sleeves and are just completely unafraid to talk about what they really feel and to question what they need to question and just leave it open. And I think that's what makes their film so good. And they're very brave that way. So that's what makes the performances good too. Like I said earlier, Jordan doesn't hold anything back, and therefore the actors don't hold anything back to him because they see him giving it all, and then they want to do that too, and they feel comfortable doing that. So
you can keep it because I want to ask how many days did you guys shoot? And speaking of like coming across things, the church, the cabin, their house in the beginning. Tell me about location finding.
I'll let them talk about locations. I'll talk about we shot this in 10 days. We decided to do consecutive days in order to save equipment budget costs.
10?
And we shot it 2 hours north of the city, so it was just easier. We all went up there. We all lived and stayed in the same house. We shot on this giant acreage of property that is its own story into itself that you can come and look at our website and see the courageous story of how that even happened. But yeah, 10 days. We actually finished half a day ahead of schedule too. So we actually only shot for 9.5 days, and then we had a big party, cleaned everything up, and then we all went home. But yeah, and then we shot, sunrise to sunset during the summer. So they were, 14-hour days longer. We took breaks in the middle to try to treat the crew as good as possible. These guys always feed everyone really well, treat them like family, treat them like they're the most important thing on set because they are. Cannot make a movie without the whole team, and I love that about them. Yeah. So then location-wise.
So when the conception to production of this movie was very short, I think we said, hey, I was like, Hudson, write this script. And then we were shooting 2 months later.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, I think we had six weeks of pre-production, including we were at Comic-Con for an entire week the week before with our short film. Yeah, so it's like we had almost no time to get anything ready. Nuts. It was very there was a lot of God in this film and just getting it made.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone.
Whichever God that was, but yeah, no, we wouldn't recommend it to anyone either. So early on in the process, we were like looking for cabins somewhere in North Georgia, and Hudson had a bunch of Airbnb or VRBO listings, and he sent them to me, and I was looking through, and I was like, hold on, I know one of these people, and so I got in touch with her, and I went up and checked it out, and it was this really unique cabin. It's the women where the 3 women live, and so we did that, and so we're like, okay, well, we'll shoot in Hiawassee, and we got a few other locations, and then they fell through. Right. And so it was 2 weeks before we were supposed to start production, and we're flying out to Comic-Con to show our short there, and Hudson sat next to a woman on the airplane, and I'll let him finish this story.
So I was sitting next to this lady on there, but this is fun, the little one. So yeah, a location had fallen through, a little bit of money had fallen through. We didn't have a place to stay in Hiawassee. We're shooting in a week. We're going to Comic-Con. Sit next to this lady on the plane, and she says, and we get to talk, and she's going out to interview people. She did an online radio show, and I tell her we're filming this movie in Hiawassee, and we're indie filmmakers, and she's like, oh, that's interesting. She's like, my husband's family lives in Hiawassee. They live on 200 acres of land, and we have a weekend house there, a 5-bedroom house. So one week before we started shooting, we found the house that we stayed in. Michelle, who's the lady I sat next to on the plane, became a producer on our film, and she started working in film as a result of our film. Yep. And then we shot about half the movie on her land, and would just go out and explore and find what we needed and shoot there, and it was really a miracle.
Let me say, because Hudson is the writer-producer, and he's actually just a genius writer. Once we shifted and found the new locations, like we drove around the places, found it, and he rewrote scenes based on what we found to really exploit the best parts of her property. Like there's a scene with all these old cars overgrown. That was not in the original draft at all, but as soon as we saw it, he like rewrote the scene and we blocked it there and dealt with the thorny weeds and the potential snakes, and we had yellow jacket stings, and poor Ree, who played Dart, literally had every insect sting, like poison, everything you could get. And but yeah,
he hates nature. I mean, he hates being outside. He hates bugs. And during one take in a field, a bug actually flew directly into his eye.
It's in the movie.
And we have it. It's the whole thing where he screams and all of that is not in the movie. It is in the blooper reel, which is great. But the church was actually the hardest location. Because there were several places, because there's a bunch of beautiful tiny churches that are 150 years old around there.
Which turns out historical societies don't want you coming in and stomping all over their beautiful churches.
No one was super excited about that. So then there's this place up there called Foxfire, and it's like a village that it was a book in the 70s that taught people like how to I don't know what words to use, how to like cook, how to live in nature, like wilderness guide, basically. Yeah. That's pretty amazing. I actually had found a copy in a thrift store a couple years ago, and then we ended up shooting on this land. So they've got all these cabins like it's 1800 or whatever, and they have a little church there, a little chapel. And so we ended up being able to shoot in there, and it was perfect. It was really, really fun. And
we had to hike all the gear. I should say, our key grip and our gaffer and our sound man hiked all the gear up the top of this giant hike mountain, which was like probably a quarter of a mile, so we could shoot there at dusk into night, because we had almost no money. We shot a lot of stuff day for night, using the sunlight as moonlight as much as possible. And so they literally had to hike it all up, and then these guys all helped too. They bring everything down too. But yeah, like I said, it shows a group effort. Like everyone pitches in, everyone brought it up, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place, and it just has this great feeling. And we tried to exploit any of those locations, like even that cross at the base of the hill, like that's really there, and we filmed it.
Well, it was in the building. I carried it.
Oh, that's right. He did carry it down. but it's like, and it's a happy accident. It's like we filmed at dusk, and she, when she walks in, she looks like she's walking into darkness, and then she kind of appears through like a little bit of light, and then gets swallowed up. And it's like all that says a lot about the character in the moment, and it was just exploiting what was there when we saw it. So there's a lot of that, especially when you're shooting low budget in 9.5 days.
How'd you guys make the blood? Like, what was your blood recipe?
Oh.
And
so,
also,
we have a blood girl.
Yeah.
We have a blood girl. Explain.
Oh, yeah. Her name is V. Kelly, and she's amazing. She does a ton of awesome
it looks
work.
Incredible.
She has a blood fetish.
Oh, yeah.
So, a legit, real, almost scary, but in a really friendly and wonderful, loving way.
Seem creepy.
Oh, she is creepy in the best possible way. She's amazing.
You give her a task, and she would literally have it done in perfect in like 3 hours.
Yeah, she's like the hardest working person I've ever met in my
all the
life.
props too, so like the knives and the axes and all that kind
wow.
of stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She did all of that, but she just had like buckets of blood.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how many movies don't get blood right, and when I saw y'all's, I was like, they have some legit blood.
Okay, well, she's a professional union special effects and props and makeup, and like she does that, and so like that's actually what's good about our crew is that almost everyone. Because Atlanta is kind of a booming, thriving, younger market now. We're all union members, like on the crew, working out and having that skill level, and they were all willing to donate time because they love the project and because these guys are amazing and they, like working with me and whatnot. And but yeah, I mean, we had five different people come up and do Steadicam for us on different days for free. Well, not for free, but pretty close to free, because they believed in us, they believed in the project, and that's the only reason we have like some of the really great camera movements that we have. Otherwise, I was talking to them and I was like, we're literally going to be on sticks or handheld because that's all we can do. We can't have a dolly. Like, we don't have 6 people to carry it up a mountain and a truck to move it in. And so it's like, those are just the realities of filming on micro, tiny budgets. You don't have the time to set up and lay track when you only have 3 people. And you want to leave time for the performance. And a lot of times the limitations of what you work with on low budgets make the most creative. And I always kind of use Jaws as the example. It's like, I'm sure Steven Spielberg wanted to show the shark all the time, but it didn't work. And so he had to shoot around it. And that's literally one of the best parts of Jaws. And now if you made it, they would just be a CGI Jaws, like Jaws 3D or whatever.
It would be Sharknado.
It would be Sharknado. But like, we didn't have that luxury. So we had to focus on framing the shots, getting the good performance, deciding what was important, shooting at the right times of day. And really just concentrating on what tells the story emotively, and hopefully that shows. And like I said, most people are like, you shot it in 10 days, and then if you knew our budget even more, you'd be like, oh. And I would like to shout out to Aerie Atlanta, who gave us a great deal on the camera package and some lights, Full Frame, who gave us an amazing deal on the G&E, and eFilm, who did the post-production color for us. They were amazing and made my job look amazing.
It was amazing.
So lastly, what was it like hearing from Oxford? Did you get an email from Melanie? I mean, how did you guys find out you were going to be a part of this?
I don't get the emails, so.
Yeah, Oxford has been the best film festival, not only once we got here, but leading up to it, of the amount of communication, the clarity of the communication, the telling us exactly where we're going to be, what we're going to do, how to get here. And we've done a couple of festivals with this film, but we've done a ton with our short films, and it's by far the best festival experience we've had. So we're so impressed with Oxford, and we'll hopefully be back every time we make something. I'd love to, yeah.
So when you guys go to Comic-Con, I guess, is it coming?
July.
Yeah.
Probably next year.
Are you guys going to do another quick movie right after? I mean, what the hell? Seems to be a
Very
theme.
possible.
We should have another movie done this year, so hopefully we'll do Comic-Con with this film this year, and the next one next year, because it's so much fun to go to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, these are the best too.
Where can we find info about the film and follow it for those that are watching?
The easiest, most direct place is thisworldalone.com, and then on the social media, is it all
This World Alone Film?
at This World Alone Film.
Beautiful. Guys, loved it. Best blood I've seen in a while.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.